as head researcher on my nominations team. This is her last markup. Can you believe it? She's headed off to law school. And she has joined the committee first in summer of 2020, and since that time, Anna has provided invaluable research assistance on a host of nominations, including 2 Supreme Court nominations. She's been an instrumental part of the nominations team. Her work ethic, dedication, and good sense of humor will be missed. Good luck in law school. Thank you for all you have given to the committee, Anna. We have 5, today we'll vote on 5 judicial nominees and 3 U.S. attorneys. An additional 5 nominees have been listed for the first time and will be held over at the request of the minority. They are Judge Sarah Miriam, Second Circuit, Judge Laura Montecalvo, First Circuit, Tiffany Cartwright for the Western District of Washington, Nina Wong for the District of Columbia, and Steve Dettelbach to be the Director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. I'll speak about 2 of the nominees receiving a vote today. John Lee for 7th Circuit, Nancy Maldonado for the Northern District of Illinois, and then turn after that to Senator Grassley. We'll vote on the nominees in the order listed. I want to briefly address an issue which we are all very concerned about, and that was a report yesterday of the despicable threat against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. In the past few years, we have seen a growing threat and use of political violence against elected officials and appointed officials, election officials, police officers, school board members, lawmakers, members of the judiciary. It is inexcusable to engage in violence, threaten violence, or encourage it in pursuit of political goals. It is not constitutionally protected, nor will it ever be, whether that emanates from the right or the left. I also want to note that according to the court documents, the gunman outside Judge Kavanaugh's home said he found the address on the internet. This committee reported out a bill last year, the Daniel Anderl Judicial Security and Privacy Act, that is directly responsive to the threat judges face when their private information is posted online. We have hotlined this bill, but is being blocked by the junior senator from Kentucky. I hope that he will lift his hold in light of what's happened in this circumstance to Justice Kavanaugh. We need to get this legislation passed, and the House needs to pass the measure which we enacted in the Senate, which provides special protection to Supreme Court justices and their families. If they want to expand it, as I understand they are thinking about, for goodness sakes, do it. Do it on a timely basis. Let's get into a conversation to get this passed once and for all. We need to do this. We've already had 1 gunman attack the family of a New Jersey district judge, Esther Salas, which gave rise to this legislation, and murder her son. I will now discuss 2 Illinois judicial nominees very quickly. Judge John Lee, unanimously well qualified by the ABA, born to Korean parents. His father and mother were a coal miner and a nurse. Judge Lee came to this country as an immigrant at the age of 4. His family settled into a 1-bedroom apartment in Albany Park neighborhood of Chicago. He graduated magna cum laude from Harvard College and cum laude from Harvard Law School. After beginning his career in public service at the Justice Department's Environment and Natural Resources Division, he worked in private practice for several firms. 2012, President Obama nominated him to the Northern District of Illinois. When he was confirmed by a voice vote, Judge Lee became the first Korean American to serve as an Article III judge in Illinois. Since joining the bench, he's written hundreds of opinions, presided over 35 trials that went to verdict or judgment, and set by designation with the 7th Circuit a number of times. His nomination to the court was historic, and if confirmed, would make history again as the first Asian American judge to serve on the 7th Circuit. Nancy Maldonado will also be on the calendar today as a nominee to the Northern District. Born in Illinois, she earned her A.B. cum laude from Harvard and her J.D. from Columbia Law School. She came back to clerk for Judge Ruben Castillo on the Northern District for 2 years, stayed in practice in Illinois ever since. For the last 19 years, she's worked in private practice, specializing in employment, civil rights, and fraud litigation. She's tried 3 cases to verdict or judgment. She's also served the state of Illinois as a special assistant state's attorney in Cook County to investigate fraud alleged by a whistleblower. Then in 2018, the Illinois Attorney General appointed her to serve under consent decree on employment discrimination cases. Throughout her tenure on the Illinois State Police Merit Board, she has also worked to ensure that the police protect and serve and to the best of their ability. Rated well qualified by the ABA. Both of these nominees have the strong support of myself and Senator Duckworth. I now turn to Senator Grassley.
Yeah. One of the nominees up today is Judge Stephen Locher, nominated to serve District Judge, Southern District, Iowa. I'm pleased to support his nomination and glad that we're going to be able to get him out of committee on voice vote. I want to explain the process that I use in Iowa with Senator Ernst's cooperation. Senator Harkin and I, for 30 years, did it a different way, but it was always mutually accepted by both of us. And I want to thank President Obama because for 3 nominations, we didn't have any controversy with that administration accepting them. And in this case, the same way with President Biden. The Judicial Selection Commission that Senator Ernst and I set up unanimously supported Judge Locher. We've learned from his impeccable credentials, his experience in both civil and criminal law, his trial experience, and his experience as a federal magistrate judge, that he's very well qualified to move to Article III judgeship. He's also shown that he understands the proper role of a judge. I have no doubt about his allegiance to the Constitution and the laws as we write them. With such a glowing record to stand on, there's no doubt why Judge Locher received support from both his home state senators. Judge Locher is an exceptional nominee who's well qualified to serve in that position, and obviously I'm glad to support him. Last week, while I was meeting with my constituents in Iowa, I sent a letter to Justice Department and to the FBI, also to the department's Inspector General. Those letters, I provided evidence of extreme left-wing bias shown by an assistant special agent in charge at the FBI's Washington field office. His name was Timothy Tebow. This FBI agent's political bias was exposed by his LinkedIn and Twitter accounts. There he posted highly partisan material related to his superiors, matters under the FBI's purview, and matters under his own purview. According to his Twitter feed, I'm going to give you some examples, which is also under his name. He mocked the election of Senator Tuberville and the state of Mississippi at the same time. He said, quote, "Thank God for Mississippi, state model of Alabama," end of quote. He recently quoted, quote, "Can we give Kentucky to Russian Federation," end of quote. In a response to a Catholic priest's tweet critical of abortion, he tweeted an anti-Catholic slur to both the Catholic priest and then President Trump, quote, "Focus on the pedophiles," end of quote. After my letter were made public, he reportedly sent a tweet. He set his tweets to, I guess this is called protected mode, and deleted his LinkedIn profile. I fear that his political bias has infected years of FBI investigations. Since I issued my letters, I've had whistleblowers reach out to me about Tebow and others. I'll have more to say on that in coming weeks. But I'll say this now. If I hear any retaliation from Justice Department and FBI, can expect a swift and powerful response from me. I'd also like to note my concerns that the Justice Department I guess my remarks here didn't say, but he was immediately after this was made public, he was reassigned someplace else. And he was very much involved in high-level decisions to continue or to investigate or start investigations. I'd also like to note my concern that the Justice Department continues to ignore this committee's oversight requests. One example is the department's infamous October 4th, 2021 school board member memo. That memo essentially compared concerned parents to domestic terrorists. Garland has refused to withdraw it despite the National School Board Association renouncing the letter that requested the intervention of the FBI. I sent Attorney General Garland's questions about his memo on January the 18th, 2022. I've yet to receive a response. He issued his memo 5 days after the National School Board Association sent their letter, so he's capable of responding quickly when he wants to. A final example, January 19th, 2021, then President Trump issued a memo declassifying certain Crossfire Hurricane records for public dissemination. Since February 2021, my and Senator Johnson's staff have repeatedly requested an update from Garland as to when the records will be produced to Congress. To date, the department has failed to produce declassified records. It's now 18 months later. I appreciate the chairman's attempt to achieve some respect from the Justice Department, but unfortunately, we haven't been very successful. I believe it was stated that I'd receive responses to most of my requests by letter, and of course that is not accurate. I received letters, but there's little or no substance to them, so I can't consider that a legitimate response. I also haven't received requested document productions. I think that says pretty much all that can be said on the subject as far as getting the information we've been promised. Finally, I want to address the news that, as our chairman did, about the man that was going to kill Kavanaugh. He should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I assume that he will be. I've said repeatedly that the leak of the Supreme Court's draft opinion was dangerous, and you can see how it turns out to be very dangerous for certain people. The rhetoric from the far-left activists aimed at the Supreme Court that followed only inflamed the situation. And publishing the justices' home addresses and calls for action are irresponsible. Because of clear threats to the safety of the justices and their families, the Senate acted quickly to authorize protection for justices and their families. The House has delayed action. I hope they'll act soon. The Justice Department should also reconsider its refusal to prosecute protesters outside of justices' homes. The administration cannot continue to send the message that disrespecting the rule of law is acceptable when somebody disagrees with court decisions. And for the demonstrators, could you also, what I saw on television, get rid of the bullhorn and get rid of the drums that you're beating, so at least the people that live in the neighborhood could have a little peace and quiet while you exercise your constitutional rights of free speech and demonstration. Are you?
Mr. Chairman, may I take just a moment on that topic? I appreciate the comments you made today, and also the Senator Grassley on the threats against the members of the Supreme Court, and this no longer hypothetical. Unfortunately, some of the rhetoric has prompted people with vulnerable vulnerable minds to these sorts of things. And I'm glad that in the case of Judge Kavanaugh, that the individual who had threatened to kill him and had been arrested with a Glock 17 semi-automatic sidearm, that has been addressed. But as we know, part of the problem today is the copycats, the other people who see this happening and are tempted to try to do exactly the same thing. We passed the Supreme Court police parity bill, as you know, 100-0 in the Senate. We don't do that a lot, but it's got unanimous support. And I want to thank particularly our friend, Senator Coons, who's a frequent partner with me on bipartisan legislation. I like to think we're part of the coalition of the rational around here, and we invite as many people to join us as possible. But the fact of the matter is this is very dangerous, and the House, of course, does not always go along with what the Senate does, and ordinarily I would say certainly that's their prerogative. But in this case, I think it's dangerous. Last night, the minority leader in the House, Congressman McCarthy, offered a unanimous consent request that was objected to by the majority leader, Mr. Hoyer. I like Mr. Hoyer. He's ordinarily a very reasonable guy. I understand he wants to protect the prerogatives of the House when it comes to something like this. But I would hope that under an extraordinary circumstance like this, that the House would allow this bill to pass and get it to President Biden's desk without further delay. All it does, it gives the Supreme Court law enforcement officers the same authorities that the Capitol Police have to protect not only leadership, but rank and file members here. That's all it does. This doesn't change Western civilization or the face, or anything else. All it does is make sure that the Supreme Court law enforcement officers can provide exactly the same protection that's already provided by Capitol Police to leadership and rank and file members here if somebody gets a threat. This is not a time to stand on politics or because, we don't want to do what the Senate does. We have our own ideas. I'm more than happy to consider a broader bill, and I will vote, and I believe I have voted for broader protection for Supreme Court members and other members of the federal judiciary and even their staff. That's what the House seems to be hung up on. But I just want to add my voice to those of the chairman and the ranking member here today and say, please, let's get this done. Can you imagine that this individual that was arrested carrying a gun after a death threat of a member of the Supreme Court had been successful? That would be on us if it was because of a lack of adequate police protection. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Recognize just a moment. Let me just say that I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm sure, having served in the House, there's a lot of frustration among the House membership if the Senate doesn't respond in a timely fashion to certain issues. But this is a life and death matter. This is a matter of personal safety. And I might add to that conversation the bill that has been hung up on the floor. For goodness sakes, that was at the instance and request of Senator Booker and Senator Menendez after a horrible incident involving the family of a federal judge in New Jersey. We went through the same thing 10 years ago in Chicago. I mean, this is outrageous. Whether it's a justice in the Supreme Court or any member of the federal court, we ought to band together on a bipartisan basis and put politics aside and move things. So let's appeal together to those who are holding up these efforts, either in the House or on the Senate floor. This should be taken care of.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Who sought recognition? Senator Coons.
If I might, just a sentence to express appreciation for the opportunity to work together on a bill that passed unanimously here in the Senate. I was communicating late last night and first thing this morning with Leader Hoyer, and remain optimistic that this bill can pass and can get to the President's desk. Given the killing of a retired judge in Wisconsin, given the very the chilling and concerning grave threat to a justice I think it's important that we do everything we can to provide protection for our judiciary. If we extend it to their staff at the discretion of the marshal, that strikes me as perfectly reasonable. But at the end of the day, what matters is that we act to protect our judiciary and make it clear that everyone who serves in the federal judiciary needs and deserves protection. It's my hope that if something comes back here from the House, that we'll take it up and pass it quickly. In any event, we need to get it to the president's desk.
Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also am strong support of this bill and am urging the House to move forward on it immediately. I also want to add that we're continuing to work on better protection for members. Senator Cruz and I have been working on that through the Rules Committee to figure out different ways in which it is easier for members to get security because, as you know, it's not only judges that are getting these threats. Thank you.
Senator Booker.
I want to thank this committee again. It was very impressive in a bipartisan way. I think it was a unanimous committee vote that we all voted the bill to protect our federal judges out of this committee. I am frustrated. I cannot express to you the feelings when I go home in New Jersey of people that know Judge Salas, know her family. I hear from them regularly the agony to know that our judges, our federal judges, are still vulnerable in this way. It is absolutely unacceptable, and I am so appreciative of the comments on both sides of the aisle that we do everything we can to get this bill done. I also want to say that the despicable, horrific threats on Judge Kavanaugh are outrageous and unacceptable, that we all need to work together to get a bill to further protect our Supreme Court justices out of the House. And again, I accept responsibility, I hope in a bipartisan way, that we can push to get that bill done. And then the final thing in the conversation as we were working on the bill so passionately advocated for Judge Salas, I thought there was some great bipartisan dialogue about the reality we live in now in America, that the threats on public officials, whether they be election workers, Congress people, federal judges, have gone up considerably, not just a little bit. We have seen considerable rises in threats of violence. And I do think it is, and of course, the leadership of Ted Cruz and Amy Klobuchar is notable, but I think that Senator Cotton and others had some really good suggestions about this committee really working on what do we need to do to address the security of officials. And again, I'm very committed to that work, as I know the ranking member and the chairman are as well. We are in perilous times, and we're seeing that. And what's happened to Judge Kavanaugh should be called out for what it is. But we should also not just condemn it, but work together to do more to protect people who make the sacrifice often of serving in public service and putting themselves in situations where they could get this kind of horrific threats and attacks.
Thank you, Senator Booker. Before we start the agenda, Senator Tillis wanted to say a word.
First, Mr. Chairman, it's a rare moment when I agree with everything that was just said on this issue by everybody on both sides of the aisle. Hopefully we can move forward and make progress. I just wanted to mention today I'm going to be voting pass on 3 of the nominations. My friend Senator Leahy could not be here today. I do want to just complete the work of the committee so that they can be reported out. It's not because I don't have concerns with these, with 3 of the nominees that I'll be passing on or will be opposing them on a final confirmation, but that's the reason for my vote pass on 3 of the nominees that I think are first on the order.
Thank you, Senator Tillis, and I want to commend you and Senator Cornyn in an earlier situation for stepping up and showing some humanity toward our colleagues. I think it's a good example. I hope we can set it for not only this committee, but for the Senate and beyond. So thank you very much for that today. So we'll start on the agenda. If there's no one else seeking recognition, we'll begin with John Lee. Does anyone seek recognition to speak on his nomination? If not, on favorably reporting the nomination of John Z. Lee to be U.S. Circuit Judge for the 7th Circuit, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Leahy.
Pass.
Mrs. Feinstein. Aye. Mr. Whitehouse. Aye. Ms. Klobuchar. Aye. Mr. Coons. Aye. Mr. Blumenthal. Aye. Ms. Hirono. Aye. Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Padilla. Aye. Mr. Ossoff. Aye. Mr. Grassley. No. Cruz. Mr. Sass. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Cotton. Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Tillis. Mrs. Blackburn. Chair Durbin.
Aye.
Chair Durbin, the votes are 12 yeas, 8 nays.
The nomination will be favorably reported to the floor. Now we'll consider the nomination of Judge Salvador Mendoza, Jr. to the Ninth Circuit. Does anyone seek recognition to speak on this nomination? If not, on favorably reporting the nomination to be Salvador Mendoza, Jr. to be U.S. Circuit Judge for the Ninth Circuit, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Leahy.
Pass. Votes pass.
Mrs. Feinstein. Mr. Whitehouse. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Kuhn. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Rono. Mr. Booker. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Ossoff. Mr. Grassley. Mr. Graham. Mr. Corning. Mr. Lee. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Sass. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Cotton. Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Tillis. Mrs. Blackburn. Chair Durbin.
Aye.
Chair Durbin, the votes are 11 yeas, 9 nays.
The nomination will be favorably reported to the floor. Up next is Judge Steve Loker, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Iowa. Anyone seek recognition on Mr. Loker? If not, on favorably understand it, we can take a voice vote on Judge Stephen Loker's nomination to the Southern District of Iowa. Anyone wish to speak? If not, on favorably reporting the nomination, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The majority of the members present having voted the affirmative, the ayes have it. The nomination will be favorably reported. Next, we will vote on Nancy Maldonado. Does anyone seek recognition to speak on this nomination? On favorably reporting it, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Leahy.
Aye by proxy.
Mrs. Feinstein. Aye. Mr. Whitehouse. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Kuhn. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Rono. Mr. Booker. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Ossoff. Mr. Grassley. Mr. Graham. Mr. Corning. Mr. Lee. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Sass. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Cotton. Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Tillis. Mrs. Blackburn. Chair Durbin.
Aye.
Chair Durbin, the votes are 13 yeas, 9 nays.
The nomination will be favorably reported to the floor. Our final judicial nominee for consideration is Greg Williams for the District of Delaware. Does anyone seek recognition to speak on Mr. Williams' nomination? Senator Coons?
Mr. Chairman, briefly, I've known Greg for decades. He is a standout talent in the Delaware bar, and the Delaware bench is one of the busiest and most legally complex in the country. He's got 28 years of experience as a leader in our community, as well as in the firm Fox Rothschild, where he's practiced for 28 years. He's exceptionally well qualified, and I appreciate the support of my colleagues and hope we can quickly move to confirm him.
On favorably reporting the nomination of Gregory Williams, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Leahy.
Aye by proxy. Oh, I'm sorry. Pass.
Mrs. Feinstein. Aye. Mr. Whitehouse. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Kuhn. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Rono. Mr. Booker. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Ossoff. Mr. Grassley. Mr. Graham. Mr. Corning. Mr. Lee. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Sass. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Cotton. Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Tillis. Mrs. Blackburn. Chair Durbin.
Aye.
Chair Durbin, the votes are 11 yeas, 9 nays, and 2 absent.
Nomination will be favorably reported to the floor. Finally, we consider 3 U.S. Attorney nominees. They are Joshua Hurwitz, District of Idaho, Gerard Karam for the Middle District of Pennsylvania, and Jacqueline C. Romero for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. I understand we can voice vote all 3 in block. Does anyone seek recognition to speak on these nominees? If not, on favorably reporting the nominations that I mentioned, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Majority of the members present having voted in the affirmative, the ayes have it. The nominations will be favorably reported to the floor. Senator
I've got members on my side. Lee would like to be recorded as no on Karam. Cruz would like to be recorded as no on Karam and Romero. Hawley would like to be recorded as no on all 3 of the U.S. attorneys. And Senator Blackburn would like to be recorded as no on all 3 U.S. attorneys.
The record will so reflect. The majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, the ayes have it. The nominations will be favorably reported to the floor. And with that, the meeting stands adjourned.